Hi, my name is Krystal and my partner is E2. So today we are going to talk about how to find easy GEs. We are presenting to you the Student Wellness Commission because we understand that a lot of times you guys will need to help students such as athletes pick easier GE so that they can have a better time coping with their studies. So yeah, here we go.
We started this project because both of us are students. We want to take the easiest classes that we can take to get the best grades that we can get. And so we actually draw upon earlier studies of easy GEs, but we also wanted to include a host of different factors that weren't included in previous studies. For example, student aptitude, term quarter, course difficulty, department, professor leniency, and class size. And we feel like this host of other factors are correlated and they do have a significant impact on the grades that a student gets at the end of the quarter. Unfortunately, in our data set, we don't have student characteristics, so we are not able to estimate student aptitude, but that could be something for a future study. And so for data exploration, we actually use data that's taken directly from brimlock.com, which is a website that students like us use to find out which GEs are easiest. We used mean GPA as an indicator of professor leniency and class difficulty. And so what we do is we group all the courses by, let's say, a professor, and we take the mean GPA, and we use that as a rating of like professor leniency, as an example. And so through our data exploration process, we actually found a few more important variables, including the professor mean GPA, of course, the course mean GPA, the term quarter, as well as the department. As you can see from the graph, on the x-axis is professor mean GPA, and on the y-axis is course mean GPA. And the lighter colors signify like a higher percentage of students having 4.0 GPAs. And so as you can see, students like us, we really want to take classes that are on the top right of this graph.
So after the initial data exploration, we will move on to predictive modeling because we really want to create a tool that allows you guys to help students predict whether or not a GE is easy. So to define what is an easy GE, it has to have percentage 4.0 GPA that's within the top 25% of all GEs. Otherwise, a class is considered not easy. And after the initial data exploration we have talked about earlier on, these are some of the predictor variables that include department or professor leniency. So we are going to perform a supervised machine learning model, basically a random forest classification to determine whether or not a GE is easy. And we'll further subset the GEs into different foundations, and we'll first look at the scientific inquiry foundation because as you can see from the graph, the scientific GE foundations are the hardest in terms of scoring 4.0, and that's why we need the greatest help to help students identify the easy GEs in scientific inquiry. The deviation between the different foundations are also huge, as you can see from the graph, and that's why we need to have a separate model for each foundation. Well, our random forest classification model is able to predict 80.53% of the test cases accurately, and of which it's able to correctly label 90% of non-easy science GEs, which occupy the majority of these science GEs. And it can also correctly label more than half of easy science GEs, which actually form the minority of scientific inquiry GEs. As you can see from the ROC curve over here, it's plotting the true positive rate against the false positive rate. The model tends to do better if the area beneath the graph actually go towards 1. And as you can see, our model is actually doing not bad in terms of predictions. So we've also tried to calculate the significance score for each variable that we have put into the model, and we realized that professor leniency, course difficulty, and class size really play a huge role in determining whether or not the GE is easy.
And so for further research ideas, we could also expand our model to include the different foundations that we haven't included because we only did scientific inquiry for this one, but we could also expand it to include, let's say, the arts and humanities and society and culture foundations. And if we had more student characteristic data, we could also look at variables such as the student's major or student's mean GPA to be able to use as predictor variables. Also, we could do a bit of model selection to see which variables are more important, which ones we can drop, and which ones we should add to our model. And finally, we can also verify the different causal relationships between our predictor variables to see if there's anything interesting that comes up. Thank you for listening. we hope you enjoyed our presentation.